Transferring wealth successfully starts with asking yourself questions that will give your family a better life now and for generations to come. In this podcast, financial professionals John and Michael from Copper Beech Financial Group guide you through eye-opening questions to help you discover the truth about your wealth. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to The Truth About Wealth with John and Michael Parise of Copper Beech Financial Group. If you haven't listened to the last podcast, you're going to want to go back and listen to it. The gentlemen have a guest on again today. She was on last time, and so this is part two. And Michael, I know you're kicking us off today.
I will be. We brought back Amy Jordan, the owner and CEO of WundaBar Pilates, a good friend and a partner of ours. Amy, thanks so much for coming back.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So as Eric said, you should go back and listen to part one because Amy really did a great job introducing her background, her vision for WundaBar Pilates that she has created probably the last 10 years, right, Amy? I think maybe longer than that. When did you form?
Yes, in 2012 was when we opened WundaBar, but I've been developing this and working on this since 2008. So I've been teaching Pilates since 2006. So it's been a labor of love for many years now.
Great. Well, again, you should go back and listen to part one. That'll be a great foundation for what we're going to continue talking about today. And if you did listen to part one, where we ended, we wanted to really start today's podcast with you, Amy, and have you walk our audience through your patented machines that you use in all of the WundaBar locations called the WundaFormer. And that's a very unique, obviously, it's a patented product and machine. So why don't you walk our audience through, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit of the history behind it, what made you want to form a patented machine, and give a little background there to our audience.
Absolutely. It's almost the story you expect from an artistic inventor, right? Like it was literally scrawled on a piece of paper when I had the idea to create the WundaFormer. It's often said that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's literally what happened here. So I had a very small studio space, but I wanted to bring in these beautiful Pilates apparatuses. That's the fancy way we say Pilates machines together for my clients. I wanted them to be able to have the benefits of a Wunda chair. I wanted them to be able to use a reformer. I wanted jump boards classes with ease and with a quick setup. And I wanted to do standing dance conditioning work on the ballet bar. To get all of those elements for 10 human adults in one room takes a lot of space. And then to expect them to move around the room from one piece of equipment to the other, in a seamless format, it's just not going to happen. So what I did is I literally was on a plane. I had a pad of paper and I sketched out the WundaFormer, which is what I like to call the Swiss Army knife of Pilates machines. So it takes these apparatuses and brings them into one seamless unit that can be transitioned from a Wunda chair into a reformer, jump board up, jump board down. Ballet bar is an integrated part of the machine rather than being stuck to a wall across the room. And everyone has their own unique piece of equipment to use that can be quickly changed into a different format during the class flow. So there is zero downtime, no wasted minutes. You get in, you get your workout, and you head right back out. But the process of taking that from a sketch to a physical machine that we could work out on was really entertaining, really interesting. I am continually teased by the manufacturing team that the first time they met me, I was probably about 4 or 5 months pregnant, walking around in 4-inch heels, and professional dress in a manufacturing facility because I had never done this before. And I've got my little, piece of paper with a sketch, and I'm just learning through this whole process how that idea really comes to life. And my son was born the same week that our first prototype came off the factory floor. So now here I am, 10 months pregnant. I don't know what's the math, right? It's like 9 months and several weeks pregnant.
Right.
And I'm testing out the machine in the factory. And these poor fellas are like losing their minds thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to go into labor on the factory floor. And I'm testing out the machines, doing lunges, doing all kinds of fun moves. And it didn't work as beautifully as I would want the first prototype to, but it was so exciting to get it. And then it literally was in my living room. My dad is very, very handy. He's a carpenter, and he was over at the house a lot, tinkering with things. We would be swapping out parts. Some of them were wood as we were prototyping even more. And my son ended up learning how to walk around that WundaFormer instead of around a coffee table, because it was in the house for many, many months being used as, as this testing device as we were continuing to build new prototypes and go into production. And then the beautiful cherry on top is that it was patented. So females are really underrepresented in the sciences. And in the US, right now, 4% of utility patents are granted to women as the inventor. And so I'm very proud to be a part of that very small number. And for those of you listening that are female and have wonderful ideas, don't be afraid to do it. It is possible. It is doable. Just because it's been out of whack in the past doesn't mean it needs to be. If you have a daughter that has ideas, encourage her to grow and shine and pursue these passions that can really be so rewarding and so helpful, bringing positivity, change, and important change in this world.
Yeah, Amy, let's talk about something it was a challenge for everyone over the last year. When obviously the studios that were operational and doing very, very well until the pandemic. Let's talk about the terrible year you had, and I don't mean that to be negative, but you had a couple fronts you were battling on a personal side and also on the business side. Share with the audience what that was all about and how you fought through it. And the audience, I want you to go back and listen to the first podcast, because Amy talked in great length about keeping yourself healthy, exercising, eating right, and that's going to have a positive impact. That if you do get sick, you're going to maintain your health better than not. So, Amy, why don't you share your story?
Absolutely. So 2020 was really an opportunity to push all of us to the limit and see how we come out from there. And so in March of 2020, all WundaBar studios were closed. Every single one of them, both coasts. And we actually even had to close one permanently, because it was just such a challenge to try to keep everything on hold overnight. It literally just, all the revenue stopped, all the movement stopped, all the work stopped overnight, and with very little warning. We knew that the coronavirus existed, but I don't think any of us really expected this, and certainly not for a full year. So when we first closed, we were like, okay, let's do this for a couple weeks, a month, okay, 2 months. And it just kept dragging on and dragging on. And so in the meantime, we were really working hard to connect with our audience via WundaBar On Demand, our streaming platform. And we were doing live classes and still keeping energies up and keeping health going and keeping movement happening. Obviously I was cooking at the house a lot. And then also trying to homeschool my 2 kids that were in kindergarten and 3rd grade at the time. So it was just a lot coming at you. And health and wellness and being in a good physical state, from the food you put in your body to the movement you have, kind of helps you through emotionally through a difficult time like that we were all burdened with. And then June happened. So in June of 2020, I got a call from my gynecologist. I had gone in for an exam, and I got some pretty devastating news that I had cervical cancer. And I literally collapsed to the ground. And my doctor said, "You're super healthy. You take really good care of yourself. It's going to serve you. Go see an oncologist." And as most of you who have experienced this in yourself or with loved ones, you go see many oncologists. And at the end of the day, I got 3 in-person opinions and more via different connections. And the news got worse. If you can imagine, the news actually got worse. And it was an extremely rare and aggressive version of cervical cancer called small cell neuroendocrine carcinoma. And it became really bad news really fast. Radical hysterectomy, 90 hours of chemo, 25 days of radiation. And then there was so much more on top of that you just don't expect. The hospital stays, because you're white blood cell counts drop, different complications from surgery. I ended up going in for another surgery just in January of 2020, and it just kept coming. But every time that I would come up against a new challenge, my oncologist, my surgeons, the radiologist, every single time they said, you are getting through this, you are surviving because of how healthy you are going into this. We have nothing else to contend with. We don't have any kind of poor habits like smoking, right? We don't have to deal with obesity. We don't have to deal with high blood pressure. We don't have to deal with any of the other factors that can be improved or worsened by lifestyle choices. And not to hold myself up as this perfect example, but it is a sincere focus in my life to live a healthy lifestyle. We talked last time on the last podcast about the 90-10 approach to eating nourishing, nature-bound foods 90% of the time. Obviously, I love movement. I love Pilates in particular, but I enjoy hiking, and that movement keeps your body in a healthy state. And without question, the reason that I was able to survive a really, really awful experience in a health crisis that no one saw coming. My oncologist, in fact, says there's no medical reason that you got this. Great. Perfect. I'm just extra. So the idea is you never know what's around the next corner. And if you do, prepare yourself to handle whatever is thrown your way, whether it's an emotional challenge, a health challenge, a financial challenge. If you have the health inside your own skin, you're going to be poised to get through it and come out stronger.
Yeah, that's what I always loved about the Pilates story, because people that really do Pilates, they don't do anything else. they do Pilates, and they live and breathe like you and our educators. They're committed to that process because they know how healthy it is. And I watch my daughter. That's exactly right. I mean, Alicia was 100 pounds all wet, and she was solid muscle. And she was an excellent trainer under Amy's tutelage, and I watched her develop into this magnificent form, and she's just as healthy as Amy. I mean, she's tough as nails. But Pilates did a lot for my daughter, and obviously for Amy, and anyone who does Pilates. And in New York, when I visit the studios, I see all these souls walk out smiling, sweating, but they're all in spectacular shape. They all love the experience, and they truly love Amy's machines. And that's one of the reasons why I was attracted to the Pilates world with Amy's machines and the way she's designed them, because it is a difference Pilates studio. If you go to a typical one, you don't see these type of machines. So if you're local to LA and New York, you should look up the studio and try a class, because I think it's a fabulous way to get back into health if you're not healthy, and stay healthy along the way, and fight off any bad things. And by the way, Amy's she was working through that whole time. I used to yell at her all the time. Amy, right? Amy, rest.
Yes, more than once there was a Zoom call as I'm in the hospital bed for chemo, and John's like, "Why are you on the call?" But I had to pass the time somehow, right? It's good to keep your brain active and really choose to have a positive outlook, and just decide with everything you have that you're going to get through this. So whether it's a health crisis or an emotional crisis, deciding inside your own spirit, I'm going to get through this, and keeping yourself focused on positive work, positive people surrounding you, like John and Michael, like the clients at WundaBar, like my amazing team, like my tribe in my personal life that literally physically carried me through this process, absolutely will get you through to the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty remarkable to watch you go through that last year, and both my father and I are obviously so happy and grateful that you made it through. One question that I've always had, I don't think I've ever talked to you about this, but if there is a listener out there that is, let's say, struggling with health and wellness, what is your advice on getting started? Do you advocate for jumping right into it? Do you advocate maybe baby steps to develop this lifestyle? Because I've always found that it is a lifestyle, I think, decision, not necessarily a fad diet, or I'm going to exercise for a month and then go back to the way things used to be. But what's your advice to people that may be struggling with how to better themselves from a health and wellness standpoint?
That's a great question, Michael. Thanks. I genuinely feel that it's so important to focus on visioning what you want to feel like, what you want your life to look like, rather than what you want your body to look like, or some other external goal like a number on a scale. When clients tell me, oh, I have 10 pounds to lose, I'm like, leave your scale out of the conversation. I don't want to hear about it. It has nothing to do with the scale and everything to do with the function of your body inside out. So in the studios, when I train the educators, one of the very important factors we look at is helping everyone succeed and meeting them exactly where they are. So that means if you have never worked out in your life, or you're coming back from an injury, or you're an elite athlete, we are going to make sure you get a really fantastic, positive experience from the get-go. And then I encourage everyone to listen to their bodies. So whether you're doing workouts with us streaming online, whether you're coming into the studio and working out on the WundaFormer, listen to your body. So if something feels aggressive, we're always giving you options. We're always saying, this is a good challenge, stay here. If you're looking for more, try this. Listen to those options. Lots of times we're going to give you ways to make it less aggressive, more aggressive, and really find what is a great challenge for you. We have on WundaBar On Demand, we have 10-minute workouts. We have workouts that are focused on stretching and flexibility. We have workouts that are absolutely going to wreck you. So we have all the approaches,
been there, done
and
that,
everything in between, right? And we really want to serve people where they are. And that doesn't mean you have to come in being a Pilates expert. More often than not, people come in and they're like, I don't know what that is. It looks a little like a torture device. Are you going to hurt me? And we're going to do it with a smile on our face, but we're going to take really good care of people. And my genuine perspective, and what I invite the team to hold, and I know that they hold this in their spirit as well, is that you're perfect wherever you are today. And we're here to serve you wherever you are today. That's different from last week. It's different from next month. But being true and authentic to where you are today is going to be your best way to make progress forward. So if that is a 10-minute workout, if that is holding a plank for 1 minute, if that is skipping a day because your body doesn't feel like it, do that. Do what works for you, and you're going to get there by listening to your body and also by visioning how you want to feel, and do an internal check, not an external check.
It's probably hard to do these days where everybody is so body conscious and everything else. But it is, I think, a very unique approach to it, and I think it's probably the right one. But it's probably difficult and new to get people to think that way. It really is new. Sometimes.
So often I'll get hit with, requests for interviews. Hey, do you want to write about a beach body? Hey, do you want to write about bikini season? Hey, do you want to write about, this, that, and the other? And my response is always, I'll be most happy to write about feeling great in your own skin in your bikini, but I'm not going to talk to you about a six-pack. In fact, if you look at the WundaBar blog, you'll see that there's an article up there I wrote about why I don't have a six-pack and why I don't even want one. So I'll encourage you to go there and read more.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the
educators.
Because
it's not an outside in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's amazing how you kind of cultured this. But I go back to the educators. I mean, I watched my daughter and other educators in the studio manage 10 machines, 10 bodies on these machines, and within seconds they know that number 7 is not doing the routine properly, and go right to that particular student and adjust where they were going wrong, at the same time coaching the one next to them on things that they're doing correctly. It's fascinating, Eric, when you see how talented and skilled these educators are. They don't miss a beat, and they're all that good because they make sure they're trained at that level, or they don't pass mustard. They've got to actually pass a test with Amy to get on the boards, and they got to go through this course and this training that's extensive, and it's pretty powerful to watch. Amy, what's also funny, when you do that 2 weeks to, which is a 2 week everyday Pilates, and she does before and after pictures, they're fascinating. What changes in the body just in 2 weeks? You want to walk a little bit through that? Some of the torture you put people through.
It's so tremendous, and to touch on what you were saying, John, the educator team at WundaBar are absolutely the gold standard in this field. They are an incredible group of people, and so passionate about the work they do. So well trained and skilled, and they are They're genuine humans who really want to help other people's experience in their own skin. I know I keep going back to saying that, but that's the impetus of what we do. And this team makes it happen, right? So I often am the one, being interviewed, but I'm not in the studio right now, and there's loads of classes happening on both coasts, right? There's a build out happening at this moment in New Jersey. There's classes happening in San Diego. This is a team effort from top to bottom, and they create just a dynamic experience, like you said, making sure everyone in the room is getting tended to, getting the best movement and the most out of their exercise time in the studio with us. To that point, we make sure you're working very, very hard. And if you choose to do our challenge, which we call 2 weeks to Wunda, it is tremendous because we're teaching you how to use your body in a way that you've never used it before. We've accessed muscles that you didn't even know you had. We really do. And that kind of system wake up is what creates those dynamic changes in the body, even if you have been working out elsewhere. It's really amazing. Tremendous. It's really tremendous.
2 weeks. It's amazing what it could do in 2 weeks. It's almost scary how successful one could be if they stay with it and do it, and more importantly, do it correctly. Because you could do Pilates.
And what happens is people will do that 2 weeks to Wunda. Maybe they do have a goal in mind, some sort of a high school reunion or a wedding or a vacation somewhere. We often see people say like, I've got 2 weeks. I really got to nail it. And they're so blown away by the transformation that then they are just absolute devotees by the time they're done. They're like, wait a second. This, first of all, I feel good. I'm having fun. I want to come here. Versus something like, a big box gym where you're like, oh God, I have to go to the gym today. People want to use their classes that they purchase at WundaBar. They're excited to go. They're disappointed if they can't get in. When I first started the studios, I used to have to pay one of my team members to stay up until midnight when the schedule released because people were so intent about getting in. This was when we only had one studio and it was, you didn't have other options of where to go to. And people would wait up until midnight the day the schedule released to make sure they got into their classes. I don't think anyone's doing that for a gym or for any other kind of a class.
Yeah, and after the pandemic, people were knocking down the doors to get back into the studio. I know in New York.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I was getting messages every single day. Are you open? Are you open? Are you open? And I'm so grateful that we are back open. We are full classes. We're seeing smiles again, and it's tremendous. It just is so good for the soul.
Well, Amy, I think that unfortunately, I think we're running a little low on time, but this has really been an awesome 2 podcasts, and so thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, sharing a little bit about the business and WundaBar, and maybe you could take a couple seconds and tell the audience if they are interested in checking out WundaBar, how can they get a hold of you, where the studio is located, and give them a little bit of information in case a listener wants to try you out.
Sure thing. Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here, and I'll talk to you fellas anytime. So you can find us at WundaBar.com. That's WundaBar.com. And you can find us on WundaBarOnDemand.com. Those are our 2 services, studios versus our streaming platform. On Instagram, we're at WundaBar Pilates. And if you want to reach me directly, I'm at Amy Jordan Official. And you can find us as well on Facebook and under those same handles.
Awesome. Amy, thank you so much again.
Now you know, Eric, why we love Amy. She's a superstar in my book, and it's always a pleasure speaking with her at the level. Outside of the business side, we have a wonderful conversation about health and wellness all the time. Matter of fact, we have more conversation about that than almost anything. So I always look forward to spending time with Amy. Amy, I love you to death, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. And keep the faith. And I'm glad you're healthy. You're kicking it, and I couldn't be more happy for you.
Thank you guys for being part of my tribe.
Guys, again, Amy, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I love to hear, especially, I don't know, this is just kind of weird, maybe this is nerdy, but I love to hear how much training you do with your coaches or your teachers, your educators, because I think that people can go into exercise the wrong way, as John alluded to a few minutes ago, and do some damage instead of doing something positive. So I love that you're really making, setting that bar, setting that standard so high. So thank you for doing what you do. Of course, John and Michael, thank you so much for bringing her on the show again. This was a great 2-part podcast. And of course, our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Truth About Wealth podcast with John and Michael Parise. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John and Michael come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much. For everyone at Copper Beech Financial Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Truth About Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Copper Beech Financial Group. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.
This material is for informational purposes only. Neither APFS nor its representatives provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Please consult your own tax, legal, or accounting professional before making any decisions. Copper Beech is not affiliated with American Portfolios Financial Services, Inc. and American Portfolios Advisors, Inc. Securities offered through American Portfolio Financial Services, Inc., a member of FINRA SIPC, investment advisory and financial planning services offered through American Portfolio Advisors, Inc., an SCC registered investment advisor. These opinions are subject to change at any time without notice. Any comments or postings are provided for informational purposes only and do not constitute an offer or a recommendation to buy or sell securities or other financial instruments. Readers should conduct their own review and exercise judgment prior to investing. Investments are not guaranteed, involve risk, and may result in a loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Investments are not suitable for all types of investors. Copper Beech is an unaffiliated entity of American Portfolios Financial Services, Inc. and American Portfolios Advisors, Inc. Any opinion expressed in this forum is not the opinions of American Portfolio Financial Services, Inc. and American Portfolio Advisors, Inc., and have not been reviewed by the firm for completeness or accuracy.